Welcome to another episode of the CPG Guys podcast. Our co-hosts, Shri Rajagopalan and Peter V.S. Bond, explore how brands and retailers engage with consumers online, in-store, and everywhere in between. And now, here are Shri and Peter. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the CPG Guys podcast. I'm the Brooklyn Boys of Summer CPG guy. My name is PVSB, and my domain expertise revolves around the digital shelf, its content, retail, customer data insights, CRM, and loyalty. And my co-host, he's the Bronx Bomber CPG guy and an expert at branding, direct-to-consumer, unified commerce, retail media, and marketplaces. Please join me in welcoming the man who goes by one name, Shri. Shri, how you doing today?
Doing awesome, Peter. Sunny, peachy day in New York City today. Pleasure to have our special guest that you will announce shortly. And for all our fans, this is opening day of Major League Baseball. The Yankees have played their game. The Dodgers are yet to play their game.
How the Yankees do?
Before he takes a stab, talks about the Yankee results, I do want to remind our audience, if you heard our previous episode, we have a genuine MLB fan who actually thought last Wednesday was opening day and insisted
not last Wednesday, Sunday. So
whenever it was, that it was the opening day because it was the ESPN game of the week. A true MLB fan.
All right. So what Shri is trying to disguise is the fact that as of this afternoon, the Yankees have been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. So we're just going to put that aside and get to the conversation. Before we actually introduce our guest, I want to remind our audience that all of our content, we have some great series on profitability, women's leadership, where Shri and I were able to help contribute $8,000 to Susan G. Komen Foundation. We had a founder series in the first quarter of this year, an ongoing retailer series. It's all free, so no money, doesn't cost you anything. Just go to CPGGuys.com and you can find it there. We have a lot of other content, including a list of our favorite podcasts. Shri, I'm going to update that because I found a couple more that I think are worthy of our list of superior podcasts. So I'll be updating that next week while I'm doing a little vacation. But in any event, I also want to remind you that our podcast is audience driven, and that means you give us feedback. We try to tailor our guests and our content to that. The best way you can share with us what you'd like to hear about and who you'd like us to have on the podcast, it's pretty simple. Go to ratethispodcast.com/CPGguys. Leave us a rating and review on the Apple platform. That'll be very helpful. So let's get on to the main event, Shri. Our guest today was introduced to us by previous guest, Andrea Lee at IdeoClick. Our guest spent 9 years working at one of, my favorite grocery retailers, the super regional out of Rochester, Wegmans. And then he went on to build the consumables and fresh business at, what's that Seattle-based company we talk about often? Oh, it's Amazon. Yeah, that's where he was.
What about the name every now and then?
I know.
Rainforest and
comes into the conversation. They're occasionally they're top of mind. But in any event, more recently, he serves as the CEO and managing partner of Consumer Equity Partners. That's actually one of the parent investors of IdeoClick, and where he actually serves as the chairman of that company. He's here to talk to us today primarily about his capacity as CEO of another company, his portfolio, one that Shri and I were introduced to by one of his brand clients. This company is called Replenium, which he founded in, I believe, 2013. He can correct me if I'm wrong later. But in previous episodes, you've heard Shri and me talk about how brands should be investing in retail brand building capabilities. Notably, this concept of subscribe and save features. Replenium is a different take on this. It's not just about scheduling the repurchase. It takes into account more than that. And we're going to kind of dig in and ask him to educate us about that. Please join us in welcoming to the CPG Guys podcast, Tom Furphy. Tom, welcome. Hope you're doing well. How are you today?
I'm doing great. And thank you guys so much for having me.
All right, before we get into a couple questions, first of all, Tom, do you have a baseball preference? Yankees, Dodgers, other?
Oh, I was born in New York, and I grew up a Mets fan.
Okay, no, that's okay.
My New York affiliations were handed down to me by my dad, so I can't. I'm not even going to go on the football side of the equation, but on
we're both Giants fans. That's
Giants.
where
I unfortunately am not.
Okay, but I can tell you, Mets are okay because it's a blend of the Giants and the Dodgers to make up for the loss.
Good.
But Shree and I are actually going to the Sunday, August 15th Dodger game at Citi Field. So totally happy. And one of the things I love about it, you walk right into the lower level behind home base entrance. There is an homage to my personal hero with the big number 42. That's Jackie Robinson. So
I love that.
Anyhow.
And if weather permits, there will be some live broadcasting of the CPG guys.
I think there will be. I think there will be from Citi Field. Okay, Tom, before we get into our intense grilling of you, you know we don't do that. Our audience loves to learn while they're listening and dig in. Could you first of all share with them where online they can learn more about Replenium? And then after that, if you could give us just a little overview about what you're doing with Consumer Equity Partners.
Absolutely. Well, you can go to replenium.com. And as well, we're on all the social media outlets as well. Facebook, Twitter, and you can even find us showing up on Clubhouse now and then.
Are you on TikTok yet? Because we're on TikTok.
Not yet TikTok, but
okay, we'll talk about that after the show. But it's
all right. That's awesome.
We're also Clubhouse fans. We Clubhouse all the time.
Mission in life, Peter. Get Tom on TikTok.
I know we got to get him on TikTok. We'll work on that.
Count me in.
Tell us about Consumer Equity Partners.
Yeah, so Consumer Equity Partners, it's our venture fund based in Seattle. Not that it really matters where you're based nowadays. We, as you had mentioned, we got to Amazon in the relatively early days. We were charged with building a CPG e-commerce business on top of a platform that was tuned, to sell books and music and movies and in physical form, by the way. And then we had to create this business of products that are way outside, way far afield of that, but are super important to customers. So after being at Amazon for a number of years, building those businesses, so everything from prestige beauty to health and personal care to grocery, building capabilities like subscribe and save, a lot of the stuff you see in the recommendations engine today, starting and running Amazon Fresh within that as well. Like we created this, I would call it like a relatively high level of disruption, for lack of a better term, in the industry. And as we were doing that, we said, customers are really digging what we're doing. Partners, they like the volume we're giving them, but they hate working with us because we're so much different than any other retailer, and we're placing all these demands on them that are just they just weren't used to. And we're creating this kind of new competitive dynamic in retail that we thought, as we looked way forward, could get really interesting, right? If you look forward to a time when Amazon's 20% of retail, what does that mean? So we built an investment thesis off of that. We said, geez, based on that, we're creating great opportunities to help the world work better kind of with and through Amazon. That ultimately became IdealClick. And then we said, there's also real investability around helping the world either compete with Amazon if you're a retailer or hedge against reliance on Amazon if you're a brand. So, competing against Amazon as a retailer, businesses like Bevy Up that we sold to Nordstrom, businesses like Replenium, which is our replenishment platform for the world outside of Amazon, that helps retailers compete. And both of those companies and some other things we're spinning up, really help brands go to market in new ways, both direct to consumers and through, and in conjunction with retailers. So we have an investment thesis around those areas, things that are going to be disrupted around retail, some disruption in supply chain, things like health, self-care, digital marketing, those kinds of areas. And so that's our investment vehicle. It was originally funded out of our Amazon returns. And then we've since brought in additional outside investors as well.
That is very helpful, Tom. Thank you for that. And also thank you for allowing us to dispense with the standard Amazon 6-page brief in preparation for this podcast. Shree and I we never get past page 2. It's just too frustrating for us. It's probably why we don't work at Amazon, but in any event.
Actually, it's a no PowerPoint, Microsoft Word culture, and we have lived true to that expectation for you, Tom.
Nice.
All right, so let's get to the questions. why are retailer-based subscription services so desirable for consumers? Are there specific types of products that lend more favorably to this model? Is there something about the experience of purchasing into a subscription that pleases shoppers? What are your thoughts on this?
That's a really good question. And, I will say when we originally built Subscribe and Save at Amazon, the motivator for building it was we knew at Amazon we couldn't have a complete assortment, right? We couldn't be a complete solution for any of our customers. We also couldn't be a complete solution for any of our brand partners because we couldn't carry all their products. So we have these two incompletes in our score. So how are we going to win, right? And we said, well, we probably can build into the platform the capability for folks to put the stuff they get on a regular basis, on a repeat purchase cycle so they can set it and forget it. So it was we didn't do any consumer research or anything. It was just kind of our gut feeling. And so we built that capability, and, obviously it took off and it did really well. And I think we learned some things along the way with that. We learned that customers that are loyal to a product love to do that because they just love to not have to worry about running out of stock. They want to know they're getting a good value on it. And they want to know that the retailer is taking care of it for them. It's almost like when you put something on bill pay, right? You're not doing it necessarily to save money. You're doing it just because you don't want the hassle of having to worry about it, right? And we thought when offering a discount on the product that that was going to be why customers are doing it, because they get this great deal on it, and they're going to sign up for the deal, and that probably got some customers into it at first. But as we did consumer research on it after we had launched it, and over the years since, we found out that customers really were doing it for the convenience over the value. So I think it's really a convenience play. It's taking that burden off of the to-do list of the customer. The fewer things they can have on their active shopping list, frankly, for them, the better, right? They'd rather have to worry about fewer things. So that that fits that need really well. I will say that we learned a lot about that over time as far as like which categories would work well for this, to your question. The initial categories that took off were the ones you'd expect, vitamins, supplements, baby care, any kind of regular use regimen product, like a lot of personal care products, even a bunch of beauty products that tend to be replenishment items. Once you're past discovery and you find that item that you like on a regular basis, that works well in Subscribe and Save. But we also were surprised at some of the kind of obscure products that folks would put on it. If you find a retailer that carried, the 42nd flavor of Jell-O that your family just really loves, you'll buy a 6-pack of that, every couple months. And so, we were pretty generous in the amount of our assortment that we lit up at Amazon in the program. And, I will say that, the range of categories that are being purchased is fairly broad, much broader than you'd expect.
Retailers have traditionally been focused on preset systematic reordering of a product. Variables that have gone into the mix classically are historicals, last year's seasonality, but they don't really vary year over year. And then you look at COVID. One of the hardest things we say on the show that people are going to find in 2021 and 22 is actually planning, because looking at historicals and anniversarying is a foreign concept at this stage. In your estimation, what's the better model? And is it not truly what the consumer needs, just systematic reordering? Like, what's missing to do the right thing?
Traditional subscription platforms are architected in what we would call that around the product. So at its core, it's a product architecture. It is, I'm Shri, I pick this product that I want on a regular basis, and maybe you can recommend to me, the most common, repeat cycle of that. Maybe I'll know as a customer, yeah, this is an every 2 week or an every 6 week. Maybe I'll know that. I usually won't quite know it right, but I'll put that product on that cycle, and then that product will be, sent to me on that predetermined regimen or predetermined interval. And then if I end up that's too slow or too fast, I have to go in and adjust that. And that ends up causing something that we called at Amazon and since subscription fatigue, right? So having to, actively manage your inventory level at home and go in on a SKU by SKU basis and manage that is tedious. If you have a baby in a size 1 diaper, the baby's going to grow. You know what they're going to need next? Size 2. Well, on Amazon, you know what you have to do? You have to go in and cancel your size 1 product subscription and go sign up for a size 2 product subscription, right? Or what if, there's a nutrition bar that you like and you want to toggle between a couple different flavors? All right, well, at Amazon, you'd have to set one up, like every other month, and then another one up every other month and manage those back and forth. So there's a fundamental flaw in traditional subscription around being what I would say kind of product architected. When we thought about how to approach auto replenishment, we thought about it being what we call solution architected, right? So consumers solve needs, right? Shoppers are looking to have needs solved. And as a mom, if I have a diapering need, and I pick the brand of diaper and the style of diaper within that brand that I like, I want to pick that and be good. And I want the system to at least suggest to me when it's time to switch to size 2, and be able to easily switch within that and have it just go from size 1 to size 2 to size 3. Or if I want to switch between flavors, right, be able to easily do that, or between scents of deodorant, I want to be able to do that. And this doesn't sound like necessarily all that exciting, but it's that the mundaneness of the repeat purchase, that can, one of those things that can lead to subscription fatigue, that when we think about auto replenishment and what that means versus subscription, that's a key differentiator. One of the key differences between the two, between traditional product subscription and auto replenishment, is basically that auto replenishment, what we like to say, takes the good parts of the utility of product subscription, adds the element of machine learning to that, right? Because our machine learning is so much stronger today than it was 15 years ago when we launched Subscribe and Save, right? And we have a lot more data and we're a lot more sophisticated at how we can mine that data. So if we can inform, the platform and inform the customer's decision process with artificial intelligence, with machine learning, we could be a lot better at recommending replenishment intervals, like items to go with that. And then we give customers really good visibility tools and the ability to kind of, modify those replenishments over time. That's all super important. And then, auto replenishment also, one of the cool things with that is, on the retail side, it doesn't have to exist outside of the traditional basket either. It can actually drive tendering within the basket so that you don't have to manage, multiple purchase flows as a customer.
Your CTO, Umair Bashir, also came from Amazon, worked on Subscribe and Save, and you kind of referenced it a second ago, but can you dig a little deeper into how you are leveraging machine learning to enable this capability that, as you described, prevents the consumer from reaching subscription fatigue? Because I'll tell you something, I'm still sitting on about 6 years of Dollar Shave Club razors that I'm probably never going to get rid of. But I'd love to know how you're trying to solve this issue with machine learning.
Well, if you need to offload any of that inventory, just let me know. I can always,
okay, good.
I can always use more horsepower. Yeah, and you mentioned that we started the company in 2013. Here we are in 2021, and our big retail launches are actually just happening now. So what the heck we've been doing for 8 years? Well, for the majority of those 8 years was architecting the platform, and a key part of the platform architecture is this introduction of machine learning into the product. So we've been able to build some pretty amazing data sets and machine learning capabilities on top of the data sets, with a source being one of the major data providers, household name, gave us a set of like 70 million consumer transactions. We took those consumer transactions and, we've mined them and we've learned a lot from them. So our machine learning knows things like, based on the cubic centimeters of toilet paper consumed, how many ounces of toothpaste should be consumed, right? Because, the one is a proxy for the size of household, and the other numbers of mouths in the household, further up the supply chain, that's those are relative numbers, right? So we use machine learning in a few different ways. And Umair Bashir, he led 2 key engineering teams at Amazon. He led the subscribe and save team, but he also led the, I think we called it accessorization, which was a recommending of additional products based on what you also bought, right? Which we've all bought things off of Umair's recommendations. So he led both of those at Amazon. So I started working with Umair back, forever ago at Amazon. So when the opportunity to bring Replenium to market came to fruition, Umair was, one of the very first people we called to bring in to work on this. So we've been able to take this machine learning and based on that, we can do 2 things for customers. One, we can recommend products to you as a customer based on other things you've bought, other things customers like you have bought, and we can identify in the kind of in the range of products you should be buying into your home. We can identify where there are holes. So we recommend products based on those holes. Then we can also take our machine learning and apply consumption machine learning to that and be able to recommend appropriate intervals based on your household. They're never perfect, but they're usually close enough that you can get them, you can lower the barrier of adoption to this and then lower the maintenance barrier or maintenance burden on customers once you do that. So the data sets that we use this aggregated data set that we started with. We use retailers' aggregated data. And as you guys both well know, retailers have very, very much varied sophistication in the type of data they have and their ability to mine that data. But we can leverage, and if the retailer is doing some great machine learning in that, awesome. We'll take the output of that. We don't need to layer too much of ours on top of that. We take specific customer trailing data as well. So when you authenticate, you're on the retailer site or you're on the brand site and you authenticate, we can, we'll through a token be able to see your trailing purchase history if the retailer or brand makes that available, and then we can make recommendations based on that. And then finally, we also incorporate brand data because a lot of brands have pretty good data on their side as far as what they expect consumption rates of their products to be, right? And so we're able to kind of take those all together and develop some pretty sophisticated and effective recommendations for folks and helping them load up their replenishment baskets.
In a previous question, you talked about machine learning and artificial intelligence. What's machine learning and artificial intelligence telling you about the world of 1P, first party? First, especially when it comes to brands wanting to create first party relationships with consumers. Replenishable goods, first party relationships, they almost seem like a magnet attracting each other. But what's the major value proposition for a brand to do this when they may be at like 20,000 store doors plus in the United States? And why would they sign up for a Replenium type replenishable solution when the consumer has been trained over the course of history? I can just go back to the existing brick and mortar store and pick it up, and now I can click on Amazon.
Well, we want to appeal to the brand on a few different dimensions. One, we fully believe that brands need to establish direct relationships with their end customers. Retailers are a necessary partner in go-to-market, for sure, because they're great aggregators of demand. They provide a good service for the end customer, provided they provide the service well. In theory, they should provide a really good service for the end customer. So there's value, to the customer and the retailer's participation in that. But that said, especially with the ability to establish digital connections with your end customers as a brand, with your ability to gather data from that, leverage that data to market back directly to those customers, you should be able to have that direct relationship and to be able to leverage that. We see, and you guys know this well, I think most brands agree that they would like to do more of that, and I think what ends up potentially getting in the way of, like full DTC e-commerce for a lot of brands is just the economics and the ability to, create a meaningfully sized basket out of a brand specific or even a manufacturer specific product portfolio, where those economics work. It provides the right shopping experience for the customer, the right repeat purchase value proposition, all that. And some brands will figure that out and are figuring it out, and it's great. Other brands may never get there just because of the physics and the economics involved. What we really believe in is leverage the heck out of those digital connections, right? If you're a brand with an app, if you're a brand with a website, and you're getting customers in there engaging with your products, learning about them, and they're immersed in this information, give them a replenishment option there. So let them, if I'm a diaper brand and I have a new mom, and those sites have crazy traffic, right? Even if I'm a cereal brand and it's a new mom, trying to figure out either how to diaper my kids or how to feed my kids breakfast, why not leverage that interaction to say, hey, you can get on a regimen of this stuff and just set it and never have to worry about it. You can rotate through 4 different flavors of cereal. You can go on the diaper regimen, and we're going to move you through the sizes. You can engage in all that directly on the brand property. And then if you can handle that as a brand, you can service the DTC demand. If not, you can have that demand, and this is one of the cool things we enable at Replenium. We call it brand to retailer, where you can take that, do that discovery, set up the replenishment regimen, and then drop it down into your retailer replenishment basket. So now the brand gets full visibility and relationship with you as a customer. The retailer is servicing it. You're getting all the data back as the brand. So that's kind of a true symbiotic relationship there between brand and retailer. And we're really bullish on that. And then, there'll be maybe other like customers like that shopper, and maybe they're shopping directly at the retailer. Well, great. Put your replenishment, affect your replenishments down there at the retailer, but let's share that data back with the manufacturer. So in turn, we can identify even more items to replenish, for that customer. So we think there's a real opportunity to break through and create some real new, deeper levels of partnering between brands and retailers with this.
It's been my experience selling in SaaS solutions in particular into entities that one of, if not the biggest obstacle, is implementation, getting the resources, deploying the resources, having them prepared to do it. So what should retailers and brands that work with you expect from an integration, timing, and effort to get a solution up and running? And how, if at all, do you help them on that journey to make it less painful?
I appreciate that question because we just live it every day. On the brand side, we've done a really good job. We have a very simple SDK that the brand can, basically program against, drop it into their site, and it's experienced that as long as they have commerce on their site, or as long as they don't even need commerce, as long as they display some semblance of a PDP, as long as they have that, and we can put a replenish widget near a product, then that's pretty easy to do. That is so easy. That could be done literally in the matter of just a few days. What we do find is that the brand and agency relationship tends to be a little complex. And so agencies can sometimes try to make it a little more difficult than it needs to be. Particularly kind of web and design agencies can make it a little more difficult, but it's super fast. Brands can implement in a matter of days. On the retail side, it's also very similar in that if you want to basically use the out-of-the-box solution, we're talking to one of the very largest retailers today in the world. And they're actually looking at potentially just using our base experience and creating their own section of their website, which is not necessarily ideal because you at least got to market people over to that section to go find the replenishment items. Not ideal, but we can implement that in like 30 days with a retailer. So, a retailer may say, yeah, I'll start with that so I can get it in, start getting some proof, getting some data going, and then I'll do the full deal. And our full deal implementation is we're a set of microservices that basically, if you can build all the front end experiences for the customer, right? So, whether it's, search or browse results, whether it's, product detail pages, whether it's special sections on the site, promotion sections, whether it's even in the cart, you can add, replenishment widgets next to those. Once you click the replenishment widget, Everything behind that is ours, up until you get to slot selection and whatnot for logistics. And then we need to interact and integrate back there. So, and then we ultimately merge into the cart. So even the most complex integrations, you probably talk about 90 days for a retailer, and that's with, having a few, call it, depending on your complexity, 3 to 10 internal dev heads spending time on it during those 3 months. So we recommend start simple, just get it in, get some reps, get your customers using it, then leverage the data to get a little bit more sophisticated in how you implement it.
You previously told us about how it is to partner with Replenium and actually get the solution implemented with the retailer and for the benefit of a brand. I'm going to jump into the world of the benefits. But before I do that, for the benefit of our audience, it is the 7th inning stretch down in Colorado, and the Dodgers are well on their way to getting mathematically eliminated, as Peter Bond correctly predicted at the beginning of the show. So why don't we jump right into the benefits? And
what did Yogi say? It ain't over till it's over.
7th inning stretch. And the question is a straightforward one, Tom, which is, there's implementation and there's outcomes and return on investment. So whether you're a brand or a retailer, what's the type of return on investment that you're already starting to see in the marketplace out there with implementations you've done, full SDK or not? And is it data? Is it insights? I mean, the solution seems pretty straightforward to me as let's go do it as opposed to procrastinating way too much.
Mm-hmm.
But is it customer experience?
So we built it to be all of the above. So I'll just some stats that we're seeing in the live implementations today, and I will say that these far surpassed what we had expected. So we're seeing average items preloaded into a cart to the tune of about $80 worth. Now this is at retail, right? So you've got $80 worth of stuff where the system has said, hey Peter, on Monday your replenishments are going to be ready to be picked up at store 123. Come on in, add to your order, and then come on in Monday and pick it up. And then you can go and review your replenishments. You might want to pull a couple things out, push a couple things in, but you're starting with $80 in that basket, and then even adding to it from there. So we're seeing really good basket size. We're seeing about between a 10 and 20% increase in customer value over time, right? So, and that's coming from higher frequency, right? Because the replenishment items, they kind of work for you, right? And they go and they tell the shopper, hey, it's time to replenish, here's your basket, add to it. So the cadence of items actually create the shopping occasion to happen a little bit closer together than it would have otherwise. And then of course you get larger baskets. We're seeing the average replenishment increment, so time between the set time between deliveries at the item level is at about 17 days on average. So you think about Amazon, where your shortest duration is a month. They're bigger packs, right? But when we're working at retailers that are full basket retailers, average is 17 days. So 2.5 weeks. It's crazy at the item level. And so, if you have a lot of items on replenishment, you're probably doing a replenishment basket for sure less than every couple weeks. So that drives a nice number there. The range of categories that we're seeing on the program in these full basket retailers, we know traditional center store, the stuff that Amazon would sell, packaged grocery, health and personal care, beauty, of course, those things make sense, household. But we're seeing things like the packaged deli case, the dairy case, frozen, lots of those perimeter categories are being introduced to this. So, that's kind of a nice surprise for us. And that's, I think, part of why we're seeing $80, preloaded into baskets. So, there's all those kind of transactional benefits. So, the retailer gets higher customer value, good repeat basket size, helps your e-commerce economics, all around, to that extent. For the brands, they get all the data from these transactions. Brands do fund this as well. I mean, it's not a free ride for the brands. usually the brands are funding a customer discount of some sort. Doesn't have to be deep though. 5 points usually gets it done. So some level of customer discount, good use of that discount money, by the way, because it's going to your loyal customers. And then usually some capability fee, a few points to administer the program, but it's less costly than administering a coupon or most any other fee for a retailer program. And in return for that, the brands get access to these customers. They get kind of locked in loyalty to their brands from their loyal customers. So something that they have to continually fight for. They get actually done, and they get an annuity return on that, right? So yeah, you're spending a little bit of marketing money up front promoting the program, but most of that money is going right to the customers that are using it the most. The end consumer that's using it the most. You also, as a brand, then have marketing access to those customers, right? So, if a customer is a loyal fan of a certain flavor or brand of cereal, and you have a new product coming out, you can go right to those customers and introduce that product, and you've got kind of a ready market for those. So for the brand, it's really, it's loyalty, it's ROI on marketing dollars that we think, is pretty tough marketing spend to beat. And then that's a kind of stuff that's executed at retail. And then if you're doing it on the brand site, it's just better return on, because you're paying for traffic to come to your brand site. You're paying to maintain those digital properties and keep folks engaged. This is a great way to monetize that engagement.
The pandemic has brought incredible growth to e-commerce for consumables, and it's also brought about the rise of demand aggregators like Instacart. So from that demand perspective, if brands either miss the opportunity to build D2C relationships with consumers, is the race just beginning, or is it somewhere in between?
So I have always felt like now is the time. I remember being, the very early Amazon back in 2005, going around to manufacturers' headquarters and convincing manufacturers that this internet thing is really going to be something. And, grocery e-commerce, there's a future here. And by the way, at Amazon, we have 40 million customers. That's what we had at the time, that we think we can sell this to. And I know you've all had a tough experience with Webvan and others before, but we're really going to help you guys get back, directly in connection with your customers. And we can bypass all that traditional friction that retailers tend to throw up to get in the way. So I felt like then was the time, and we're 16 years later now, and I still feel like now is the time. I think brands have certainly done a lot toward that. I don't think they've missed the bus. I think that yes, for sure during the pandemic, I think that the retail side, including the demand aggregators, moved several years forward in their growth cycle. To some degree, that's really good because now all these platforms are a lot more valuable to the brands, right? When Instacart was nascent, it wasn't necessarily that valuable of a platform for the brands. When Kroger's platform was nascent, it itself wasn't that valuable for the brands. Any retailer, Albertsons, Walmart, everybody. Heck, even Amazon, when it was early, wasn't really that valuable to the brand. But we've seen, the retailers have really served to wake up the customers to the importance of this digital connection. And so I think that brands are at a really good spot now that, if they're creating their DTC strategies where I'm going to engage directly on my properties, if I want to push these consumer-facing platforms, to best align with my objectives, I think everybody stands to win in that, right? I think a well-aligned retail platform that serves its customers well, that brands are participating in that messaging, in that value that's delivered to customers, and we can share data back and forth through that. Maybe that's still utopian. To me, it doesn't feel that utopian, and it feels like we're kind of right there now. So I don't think anybody's missed the boat at all yet, but I do think the rest of 21 and 22 is going to be a significant time of transition and kind of like land grab in this area.
Now I'm going to go to a question that I've waited in this interview to ask one of the originators of groceries delivery at Amazon and grocery shopping at Amazon. And that is, in the recent past, Peter and I have observed 11 Amazon Fresh grocery stores have popped up. Brick and mortar, as brick and mortar as the definition of brick and mortar has been done over a century. Is that the future of Amazon grocery? We'd love your prediction and your rank punditry on this.
So, it sounds cliche, and you hear Brian Olsavsky, Amazon CFO, or you hear Jeff B, or you'll hear Amazon executives always talking about, right? We focus on the customer and we innovate on their behalf. And that's exactly what they're doing in this space, right? They want to solve as many of their customer needs as well as they can. The grocery and food shopping needs of their customers is a very important, not problem or challenge, but a very important element of their daily lives. We started with base packaged grocery to the best we could do it within the platform. We then added subscribe and save to help a little more. We started the first version of Amazon Fresh that looked an awful lot like a traditional, route-based local grocery delivery service. We learned a lot doing that. You saw some iterations of that with pickup. You saw that evolve to Prime Now. You saw Amazon acquire Whole Foods back a handful of years ago now. And I think each time they've made these different moves, it's not as a result of the prior move failing. It's a result of the prior move, not quite getting it all the way done. And I think, that they learned a lot with the Whole Foods acquisition. They're not a company to just take on an asset like that and not do anything with it. So they've been actively learning from that. I think that they've learned through their efforts in Fresh, that a store-based environment or a hyper-local environment for a grocery shopping experience and or utility is important, right? So at a minimum, having that inventory really close to customers to distribute to them is important. And if that's in the form of a store, in that store can provide an effective solution for some portion of their needs, then I think that's important for them to do. So, they have a lot of Prime customers. They're looking to serve their Prime customers in many ways. And, I think to me, it seems pretty clear that they've determined that there is an opportunity in a physical grocery format that's not Whole Foods, right? That is smaller, that is simpler, it can be really effective. And those are not going to be in far-flung areas and big footprint formats. Those are going to be very local, very proximate to their customers, right? Amazon's very adept at having inventory positioned close to their customers so they can be responsive to their needs. This is just the way they do that with goods in these categories. So I think you will see lots and lots and lots more of these formats. Will they continue to be exactly as they are now? I don't know. I mean, my sense is Amazon's going to continue to learn. They're not afraid to change and try new things. When things aren't working, they're not afraid to stop. So I think store formats, though, are going to be, in this category particularly, is going to be a pretty important element of the service offering for Amazon going forward.
Inventory proximate to their customers. What a great reason to buy one of the front store non-pharmacy businesses of two major national retailers that come to mind. Anyhow, that's just my 1/50th of a dollar. I want to remind our audience that all of our content is available to you. It doesn't cost you a dime. Just go to cpgguys.com. And we'd also love you to follow us on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, and I hope you are, because we're kind of a B2B podcast, just go on to LinkedIn and enter in the CPG Guys or CPG Guys. You'll find us there. Click follow. Reason, we publish a lot of content, and a lot of content that we think you'll find interesting. Links to our podcast, articles that we publish we think are interesting. All of our announcements are there. Follow it. It's pretty useful. We'd love to have you I think by the time this airs, we will have already passed 5,000 followers of our LinkedIn page, and we are very grateful for that. So we're going to put a link in the liner notes of that podcast. Just using the term liner notes dates me. But we're going to put in a link to Replenium and also Tom's LinkedIn profile so you can find out more about him. Tom, thank you so much for joining us and having this conversation. It was really enlightening to me. Sri already knows all this stuff, but I'm sure he learned one or two things himself. But
thank you both for having me.
Hey, Sri, I think you may be right about the Dodgers not winning the day today. You know what? I'll rescind my mathematical elimination of the Yankees if you reach detente with me as well, and we'll live to fight another day. But thank you for
history in the making. Mr. Bond rescinded a word called mathematical elimination of the Yankees. That's because, why don't we update the audience? The score is 4-8 after 7. Tom, we can't thank you enough for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right, everyone. Thank you. And we look forward to having you join us for the next episode of the CPG Guys. Bye.